My name is Attorney Dominic Thomas. I am the chairman of the Woodbridge Housing Committee. I call it to order at our meeting at 6:35. Our meeting at the Woodbridge Center Cafe. We have a quorum. We have 4 members here. 5 members here. 5 members here. Of our 6 members. And the first thing I would like to do is call for the approval of the July minutes.
Dominic, the only thing that I'd like to do is change my name so it was correct.
Absolutely. And,
My first name is not David.
okay,
No, David was not there.
okay.
And
Oh, yeah.
Mary and I went over, there was a couple of places that said 2019 when it should have said 2029.
I thought she had changed it. I got this off of what
Oh,
she
did
put on.
Did she change it?
You're right, no, it's got 2019.
Yeah, it should say 2029. Or else
So
we're
with the
going-
correction of.
You can change David to Charles or
Charles.
Beck, whichever you
Yeah,
prefer.
Charles
And then you
Swanson.
gotta be changing item 2 also.
Well, there you go.
You really tortured me.
And I don't know if David wants to be a question mark or not, but,
I don't care.
okay, there you go.
I'm pretty comfortable in my
Okay, good,
business. I'm
good. I'm glad you're comfortable, Dave. That's
I'm
good.
going to suggest that this thing that I printed out has a lot of question marks and everything like that. So I will make a suggestion that we table the approval of the minutes until the September meeting, at which time we can approve these minutes also. They have been appropriately filed.
To make these. to
Yeah,
make
rather
these-
than, to be able to make the corrections to the minutes. Is that acceptable, just tabling them at this point?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Okay, that way we can make all the corrections. And remove question marks and correct names, okay. The next thing is public comment. Are there any members of the public present today that would like to comment on any item that is either not on or on the agenda? Any members of the public wishing to comment? Last time, any members of the public wishing to comment? There are no members here, so we would move on to the next item on the agenda. Comments from the chair. I am going to, I believe at this point, given the fact that I think is the first selectman on? Not yet? Okay. Then I think, Maria, he wanted to be on when you were making the presentation? Or
I
is
think
it
he was
necessary?
trying to coordinate that,
Yeah.
if possible.
We'll give it a time. I'll just make some brief comments from the chair. The most significant thing that I have coming up, just to let you know, which will be before our next meeting, is I have been invited and I will be attending the September 8th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Later on, we're going to talk about a SCROG Zoom staff and the housing growth plan that Mary and Elaine and myself all attended via Zoom. And so did the chairman of TPZ, whom I spoke with. And I believe that the topic he wants me to talk about is, first of all, generically what the Woodbridge Housing Committee will be doing, how it will coordinate with the Planning and Zoning Commission on it, but also to comment about some of the questions that they asked at their last meeting, which by the commissioners that they asked in their presentation on Public Act 25-1, a lot of which were developers, what do they want to do, how can we get developers to come into the town, what types of things. So and I'm going to be very clear to them, some of the suggestions that we'll make to them are because of my involvement in this committee. We'll also make that some of the suggestions that we'll make with them, and I'll let them know, are because of what I do for a living, which is represent developers, and what type of zoning and stuff like that, generically, that they could look at. But I would also point out how we intend on, and we will be doing this, and we've already begun our last meeting to look at various locations to take the information from the Affordable Housing Plan and review that and update it, including where the infrastructure is. We, as you weren't at the last meeting, but we had a map of the infrastructure, and we need to be able to do that. And I think the Planning and Zoning Commission has to become more familiar with that. You know, like for instance, looking at the infrastructure, I was corrected, I stand corrected when I thought at one point the sewer line went all the way down Beecher Road. It doesn't, it just goes to Beecher School, which is why we have the 8-30G
Right there.
at 27 Beecher Road, because you have the full infrastructure at that location. So I will be doing that. I'm still, the seminars and everything related to Public Act 25-1 and the Housing Growth Plan have sort of slowed up, what we would call the August doldrums, and people are around, too many people are on vacation. And, but I think one of the things that I see occurring, not with our TPZ, because they were sort of on top of it, but this is a generic thing throughout the state, and how it's going to impact this is you have communities within the state, neighboring communities to us, where the Planning and Zoning Commissions are just waking up to the fact of the things they have to do under Public Act 25-1. There are zone text changes. Our TPZ passed one, you know, whether it's correct or not, they passed it. Other TPZs are now scrambling to get planners on board to try to pass it, and these are things which can be used to increase housing. But I will say that our TPZ met the timeframe.
Dominic,
Yeah.
would it be helpful for some of us to attend the September
Well,
meeting, or?
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be allowed to talk, but certainly you can be there and listen and slip me a note if you think I'm going the wrong way. That's not the point. The point is that to begin a more serious exchange, you know, and this is the first one. But anyway, and then I'll be getting into some of the things that we're going to talk about later, which is the public outreach and how that's going on. And before going into the Beecher Road School Building Committee presentation, I did email you the VOICE Volunteer Child Protection Policy. I have gotten 3 reminder emails. We have to make sure, we have 2 that will be joining us in September. That's their first meeting. Everybody has to sign it in 2 locations. Don't be like your chairman who signed it in 1, sent it in, and got scolded for that.
I know, I did it in person, so they told me what I had to do. That was
Yeah,
good.
okay. And then there were also slides, which were going to be at the welcome on 8/28. I think it begins at 4 o'clock. I was sent the email that says on August 28th that there's going to be a presentation with the students, and then afterwards there's going to be like a socialization. So if you're more than welcome to come. I don't think anybody's going to file an FOI complaint if we all show up to greet the students and do not discuss or vote on anything. But that's on August 28th. Where is that? Good question. I think it's here, but I'll have to send out exactly where. And with that, because we're going to have more active discussions on 7 and 8, I would call upon Maria Madonic of the Board of Selectmen liaison to the Beecher Road School Building Committee to make a presentation. Oh, here's Mary.
Everything okay, Mary?
Okay, 6:45, Mary. We'll let you know, Mary, that we table the minutes till the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
Approval of the minutes till the next
Okay,
meeting.
that's fine.
Um,
Where would you like us to be to? Stand, sit, go?
I don't know, we get moved around so much. Why don't you come up to one of these seats here would be the best thing, if whatever you feel more comfortable
All
with.
right, I'll
And that way you can use the end of the table if you wish.
All right, and I'm going to bring Marty Halpern. He's the chair of the Nature Building Committee.
Absolutely.
It'll be a group effort. And
They
two
keep
pieces-
moving us around, so we,
Yeah. Two pieces of information went out to you prior to the meeting, and I'm gonna hand out one more. This is the Housing Commission's sort of role within this project. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just make sure it's here. All right. First, I want to say thank you all for your service to our town, and thank you especially for giving us some time tonight during your meeting to talk to you. Marty and I and the First Selectman are going to our various boards and commissions because there is a very large and both in scope and in cost infrastructure project that's going to go before the town in a referendum this fall. So we are coming to the boards and commissions because we want to talk about the project. We certainly want to get your input, answer any questions you may have, and show you where to find more information. We have put up on the webpage for the building committee all of our previous presentations, meetings, agendas, minutes, presentations from the architect, tri-board meetings, the historical documents, everything from the past, 3 to 4 years that we've been working on this project. So there is a wealth of information online, and we're going to do our best to consolidate that into a few minutes of presentation tonight, but we are certainly happy to get into the weeds and answer any questions that you might have. And just as you are working to coordinate with TPZ and SCROG and other boards and commissions on the statutes before you for housing, we recognize that there are coordinations that have to be done between the building committee and the different boards and commissions. We would encourage you to find out more information, and if there's one piece of information I could give you that would encourage you to go to our website and find more information, it is this. Part of the work that we have done is a capital improvement survey on the current Beecher Road School campus. And we know, based on that survey, we're going to have to spend between $45 and $60 million in the next 20 years to upkeep the Beecher Road School campus, just the campus as it is right now. The referendum that is going to the town this fall is not necessarily asking if we should spend tax dollars on an infrastructure project. It is asking the residents how you would like us to spend the money on this infrastructure project and how you would like us to take those tax dollars and invest them back into your community. And that is a very big point, and I hope that would encourage you to find out as much information about this project as possible. So with that, we will delve into a little bit of work that we have all done. This project started with 3 challenges that were identified in about the end of 2022, beginning of 2023 with the Woodbridge Board of Education. We were exceeding our enrollment projections. The district, as they do every year for planning purposes, got another enrollment projection. And that enrollment projection showed that we were one of the only Durham Blue districts that was going to increase enrollment in the next 8 to 10 years. That was alarming to us on the Board of Education because we already did not have the appropriate classroom space for our current students and our current programming. And as I've just described, we had some looming large infrastructure projects that are needed just to care for the current campus. And because of those 3 major challenges, we realized we could not just take these problems and look at it in a year or 2 budget, on 1 or 2 budget years out, or even in a 6-year capital planning. We really needed to take a step back, do a comprehensive assessment of our education, of our population, of the building itself, of the whole campus, and determine what was the best use of our funds. How do we solve as many problems as possible with the same tax dollars, and how do we invest properly in our community instead of just band-aiding problems one after the other? And that's what we did. And the Board of Ed also looked at other solutions. There was an ad hoc committee that looked at regionalization. We looked at what other elementary districts have been doing in the past few years when they've been faced with similar problems or similar combination of problems. We looked at different buildings in town and how those could be utilized if possible. What that resulted in was a recommendation to have a formal education specification study, feasibility study, and full campus infrastructure assessment of the Beecher campus. A comprehensive education specification study looks at your current enrollment, your projected enrollment, your curriculum, and looks at what are the spaces that you need to teach that curriculum appropriately for that number of students. So we had a consulting group come in, they did that work, they worked with the district, the educators themselves, and made a space matrix based on their education specifications. What was needed to teach elementary education in our town, in that curriculum. The architects then take the education specification study and they do a feasibility study, which is, okay, now that we know what we need and we see what we have, how do we make what we need, either out of what we have or out of multiple buildings in town or out of a new building? And they did that assessment over several months. They came back to the previous building committee with 5 different options. A just care for the current campus option, which I mentioned to you. 2 options that were renovate as new, renovate part of the building and put an addition on. And 2 build new options. Anytime you apply for school construction grant funding from the state of Connecticut, you have to at least do 1 new building option. Because your grant reimbursement amount, the state is going to reimburse you for the least expensive option. So if a new build is less expensive than renovating old infrastructure, you need to prove that to the Office of Grant Administration. When we started this process, we didn't know what the numbers were going to be. We just looked at what was needed for education and what we could do with the space that we had. And as it turns out, the new option was by about $10 million, the least expensive option. It was also the option that provided the least disruption to education in our district, both for the students learning and for our operational budget, because we wouldn't have to swing students to different buildings, rent different spaces to put students in, hire more educators to swing to those spaces. So for all of those reasons, that turned into be the least expensive option to move forward. Anything that I might have?
No, I think that's great, right? Keep in mind, even if we were to keep the existing building and put that 45 to 60 million in, it still doesn't address our space requirements, our ADA problems, security, heating and electrical costs and everything else that goes along with it. It would just maintain the existing building that's there.
Which doesn't solve all 3 of those issues that were identified, as Marty said, from the Board of Education. We looked at the history of all the building projects in town. The year 2000 was the last time a comprehensive education specification study like the one that we did, looking at enrollment, looking at projections, and looking at the building. And that study was commissioned 3 years after the kindergarten wing was completed. Because even after that entire addition was put on, there was a recognition that we did not have ADA accessible spaces in the rest of the building. We did not have spaces for our current curriculum, both for general education and for special education in the rest of the building. And so that comprehensive assessment was done. And in the year 2000, they found, the space matrix found the similar deficiencies that we found in 2026. So we've known about these problems for quite a while. And I think it was time that we took a broad look at this and a comprehensive look at this instead of just trying to Band-Aid and fix it and invest it in our community going forward. How the Housing Commission fits in, and what I handed out to you today, is our projected grant reimbursement that we have applied for with the state of Connecticut. The total for the project is $118.5 million. We are looking at about a 54% reimbursement from the state of Connecticut. Our base reimbursement for Woodbridge, and the state calculates your base reimbursement on a formula. Part of that formula is our average housing values. Part of that formula is our average income in the town. And our base formula is 22% reimbursement. Because this new build is less expensive than a renovation, we get an extra 10%. So our base becomes 32.14%. And then the state has written legislation for a few extra programs that we are eligible for. There is an extra 15% reimbursement for the classroom space for special education, so that 15% applies to the square footage of special education. There is an extra 15% reimbursement on the entire project for the expansion of preschool services, for which our district is already having to do because our preschool enrollment is already increasing. They are already having to add more classrooms that they don't have. If you look at the very bottom of that, there are 2 reimbursements that are post-audit. One of those is an extra 5% reimbursement on this entire project for compliance with the housing growth plan. And so I wanted to come and mention that and talk a little bit about what that is. We've had a couple of questions from the community, very good questions from the community, and some of those are, well, are there any stipulations? Does something extra have to go into the housing growth plan to qualify for this extra 5%? And the answer...
Before you go there, I just have a question. I'm getting confused by these numbers.
Yes.
Because I don't have them in front of me
Yeah.
probably. But you said we get a 54% reimbursement from the state.
Correct.
But you said the base was 21 and a fraction, then it was an 11% more, and then there was 15 and 15. Those.
So if you look at the calculation, and that's an excellent question, and we can go into the grant reimbursement a little bit more. It's important to understand when the state offers these grant reimbursements, there are stipulations on them. They only cover certain spaces. Certain spaces get reimbursed at different rates, and I'll give you an example of that. District office space is only reimbursed at half the rate of your total rate. So if 32% is on the building, for the space that's the office space, it's only 15%. So it is not like you go to Macy's, you pick a shirt off the rack, it's 50% off, you go to the register, you expect to get 50% off. There's calculations based on square footage, which is why in the grant worksheet that they've done, they calculated that out. So the extra 15% on special ed spaces works out to 0.8% of the entire project. So what we have done is we have a grant writer that has been doing this for several decades, very versed in the state statutes, is making sure that we have a very clear understanding of what our grant reimbursement is and what that applies to, what percentage of the project that applies to, so that we don't have any surprises when we get to our audit. We're not thinking it's one number and then we get another at the end of our audit. That we're very clear what spaces are reimbursed at what rate, so that we can go to the community and give them a reasonable number of what our reimbursement is going to be. That we have a good understanding of what that number is. So the extra 5% is tied to compliance with the housing growth plan according to the state statute. There is no additional stipulations that need to be put in that housing growth plan according to the Chapter 173, which is the chapter that governs school construction grants, or in the housing plan. It is simply that we either formulate our own or that we join our regional housing growth plan. That extra 5% is also post-audit, which means that joining that housing growth plan and taking meaningful steps towards it does not have to be done by the start of this project. That would be post-audit, so that would be the end of the construction phase of this project, which wouldn't be, according to our timeline, till approximately the end of 2029, 2030. So there's time.
Doesn't that work against you as well, though? Because if inflation continues at the rate it is currently, you're going to be 10 to 12% higher in construction costs.
So built into that 118.5% are sort of, well, we built in a fifth, but there are 4 different levels of contingency. There is a 4% cost escalation built into the project. There's an owner's contingency, and I forgot what the names of the other 2 contingency, but there are 4 different contingencies built into that, and that cost takes into account escalation.
As a percentage?
As a percentage.
What is the contingency, owner's contingency?
I don't remember that exact. I don't remember. I do know that we've had our building officers review those numbers. And they were...
You have a couple of items here which suggest that the programs will be expanded to qualify for these additional bonus points. does that mean that the staff increases?
So the staff is going to increase anyway, they will be adding preschool. Currently, how preschool works, because we do not have universal preschool, federally or in the state of Connecticut, for everyone. Currently, how preschool works, if a student has been receiving birth to 3 services, they haven't been meeting milestones, et cetera, and they're receiving birth to 3 services, they do get public preschool. For every student of birth to 3 that is entitled to public preschool, the school has to take in a typical peer, a student who does not have birth to 3 services. And those students are open in the lottery every year. The district calculates how many typical peers they need for the year, and notice goes out and people can enter the lottery. Those typical peers pay tuition. By state statute, you can charge a percentage of your cost per pupil, and they pay tuition. Currently, in the Board of Ed budget, those tuition dollars offset the preschool teacher's salary. It is not a zero budget item, because there are benefits that are not completely covered by that amount, but the salary is covered by the tuition dollars. I realize that we have a gubernatorial race going on, and universal preschool is a topic of discussion. As a parent, I think it is something that is needed, because kindergarten is what I did in 1st and 2nd grade, and preschool is the new kindergarten. But we are not there yet. So in the interim, before this becomes universal, we can charge tuition for the students to come in. So yes, if we expanded preschool and expanded the spaces, and we had typical peers that came in to fill those spaces, we could offset the cost of that staff with tuition dollars.
Partially.
Correct. The salaries we would. The benefits, it's not complete. I know that the business manager of the school is putting those numbers together, so people will understand a little bit more, a little more detail on that as well. Expansion of preschool is happening anyway. We already have more students. They're already looking to expand another classroom for the upcoming year. But that is because we have more birth to 3 coming in, and then now need to get more typical peers. Making space for it will make space for more typical peers, and we are allowed to charge tuition for that.
What is involved in open choice? This item here you have participation in open choice.
Correct. Our current participation.
This is the open choice.
Yes. Our current participation in open choice
And
makes
how
us
many-
eligible for a grant.
How many kids typically?
18.
18.
There's 18.
And then in 2029, when you anticipate this building to be open, how many students do you anticipate will be enrolled?
So the enrollment projections for 2030, the highest projections I believe are going to be in 2032. Yeah.
139.
What we are building towards is 1,039 students. That includes preschool. Without preschool, our enrollment projections are 960. That is what we're building towards. For grant reimbursement purposes, the state of Connecticut allows you a certain square footage per student. So you could build whatever you wanted to, but to get grant reimbursement for that space, they allow certain square footage per student. So the number of students we're building towards is 1039. If we didn't expand preschool, that number would be 960.
And in the past, what's been the highest population of Beach Grove School?
The highest population, I think, peaked in the late 90s, but they had mobile classrooms outside the building. That was not the highest population the building could contain.
Right. And how high was that population?
I believe it was about close to 1,100.
That's when my daughter was there.
Yeah.
So our housing growth plan is not due until 2029. And we don't know exactly how a lot of things are going to be measured that are directly in or related to the housing growth plan. This sounds like it's another one that is not clearly indicated in the housing growth plan or in the other legislation, how it's supposed to be measured or evaluated, I should say, for conformity with
There's no-
requirements, right?
The
But
house-
is this another thing?
The housing
that's gonna
growth plan has to be, the housing growth plan, has to be approved by OPM. Once it's approved by OPM, they qualify. There's no,
Right, then
there's
they
no
qualify.
metrics.
I'm talking about the measurement for acquiescence, for cooperation, for demonstrating that we are doing what we need to do in order to
We're,
conform to the code.
we're not going to, okay. The details and the measurements of the housing growth plan haven't come down yet. This is
Right,
the whole point.
That's my point.
But the point is this. If you do a housing growth plan, more than likely, we're gonna go with the squad. But even if you did your own housing growth plan, it has to be approved by OPM. So you can send one up to OPM. Once OPM approves it and says, you approved it, it's been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, it's been adopted by the Board of Selectmen, and OPM says, what's her name? Rebecca, whatever her name is, she checks it off and says, okay, they get 5%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not,
We don't
yeah,
have to
yeah.
do anything.
We don't have to do anything, as long as we get the plan in. Now, if we screw up the plan and it doesn't get approved, that's a whole different story.
Okay.
But if we get the plan done, which I have the confidence in this committee that we will, that they get it done. And I just wanted to be clear also that, in case any member of the public interprets it wrong, well, you can do your own and just say you've done it and they'll get the credit. No, that it's got to be approved by OPM.
And it could be either our own plan or we can subscribe to the SCROG.
Scribe plan, and,
Either way it
right,
works.
as was explained, I think I'm not sure if it was a seminar, I don't think it was at our meeting, and as explained in some of the stuff that I've passed out, if you can go your own, at some point in the next year, there will be a number issued, and then, again, that number does not require construction or anything like that, it requires adopting a plan to reach that. But that plan that you adopt has to be reasonable, it's going to be reviewed by OPM and adopted. If you go through SCROG, that plan is going to be part of the SCROG plan, which also has to be approved by OPM. I think if I were on Kalshi or Polymarket, I would be betting that the SCROG plan, the Council of Government Plans, had a really good shot of being approved on the first crack.
What is the basis for the projection of this increased enrollment? Where are all these students coming from?
So, that's a great question. As we've gone through, we've gotten an enrollment projection almost every year. From the analysis that I look at, the metrics that typically determine your elementary school enrollment, number of women of childbearing age in your community, and the birth rate. In our community, it's in-migration. In-migration has a higher, correlates more with our population increase than birth rate does, and our childbearing population does. And it's something that I think we know anecdotally as we see, that we see our neighbors move into town because of our school system. Our in-migration factor is pretty high. It's based on the average of about 108 homes turning over every year. What we did, we had enrollment projections, we had plans drawn up, we had tri-board meetings in 2025. We asked for an updated enrollment projection based on the housing that was projected or proposed in town at the time. Got those projections back, and we actually scaled up the square footage of Beecher Road School for three reasons really. One was preschool, one was to accommodate additional projections, and the other was to provide us another level of contingency, that we had some square footage and therefore also associated cost if we ran into building cost problems or some kind of X factor as well, that we had some space to play with. We typically generate between 120 and 195% of our birth rate in our kindergarten class, which means anything over 100% is in migration.
Did they do that across the board for Amity District? Did they do it in Orange and?
I don't know what the Amity, I don't know if the Amity projections are, they're based on the elementary projections in every town, but I don't know what the highest factor, what the greatest, contributing factor is to the Amity projections. That I'm not.
Okay. I just that I heard anecdotally, I just heard
Is
that
that,
Orange's enrollment's going the other way.
Correct.
is that based on the existing housing stock or the projected increase in housing stock?
So it was based on existing before, and then when we went back and got the 2026 additions for the housing that had been proposed or approved in town, we went back and got additional adjustments to that based on their projections on that housing. I mean, one of the reasons why in-migration is so high is because, as you all know, over 90% of the homes are single-family homes, and that provides you the most stable elementary enrollment. I mean, that's where people come and they settle and they stay, and then the rollover from year to year stays very stable,
Right.
as opposed to apartments or efficiencies, et cetera, where people use them a little slightly more transiently as starter homes and then move to other communities, et cetera. And so because our housing stock is that stable stock, over 90% of it is single-family homes, that's what sort of contributed to that. We have a higher rate of that than any of, others, a lot of other surrounding communities, or especially a lot of other communities, at least in our district reference group for our school, for our elementary school.
We have a lot of, or I don't know whether it could identify this metric, but do we have a lot of renters in the single family and the multifamily that we have existing now? Is that in the in-migration?
I think our rental was still around 13%. Let's see if I can pull up the number. Owner occupied is 86.8%. So around 13%, a little over 13%.
Which are the existing,
Correct.
what we have right now?
Correct.
And when was this projection completed?
The update was completed this past spring,
Okay.
fall of 2025, and then the update was completed this past spring. And when they, did updates on the projected and approved housing in town, even that has not been built yet, so they looked at our in-migration factor, but they also looked at the fact that birth rates are dropping, not just here in Connecticut, but nationally, globally, birth rates are dropping. So while people do move into our community with children, the family unit is decreasing overall. And so they're not moving in with the number of children that they are anywhere, that they did in previous decades.
What's the Amity trend on enrollment? Are you aware of that? Has it been going down, up?
I know that Woodbridge is sending more students, and Orange and Bethany's enrollment, I believe, is decreasing.
And that would be students coming out of their grammar school systems, or even, I assume, even out of Catholic school systems and other private schools.
Correct. And that has to do with, all of those factors have to do with what they call a persistency ratio. So that's how, if your students stay from year to year, so if everyone in your kindergarten class moves to your first grade class, if the numbers are the same, it's a persistency ratio of 1. If you lose students, and you could lose students or gain students for any number of reasons, but that's one of the things that they look at in these population studies, is what has traditionally been our persistency ratio. How many students do we gain? How many students do we lose? People move, they send them to private school, et cetera, over the course of the year, so we kind of have an idea of where we are. Our enrollment projection for this past year was, I believe, 800. Was 838, and I believe we finished the year at 860. So we're already exceeding our projection. We're still exceeding our projections, which is one of the things that was alarming to the board.
We were higher a few years ago. We were up to about 870 or 880, weren't we, at one point?
I think we were
Yeah,
pre-COVID,
it's come
yeah.
down a little bit.
Yeah. But enrollment, I mean, since from 2013 to 2023, our enrollment increased almost 15%.
So after all
Based
the
on the-
fines reimbursement, still looking at $50 million.
Yep.
50 how many?
Pardon?
50 how many?
50, how many?
Yeah.
It is gonna cost us between 47 and 60 just to maintain the current building over the next 20 years. Now,
Without reimbursement.
without, well,
Well, I see
there's
that.
a possibility you could get some reimbursement, but now you're looking at, there's a couple of things. You're looking at that lower number, you're looking at that 22%. And also, when previous building projects were done, the state grandfathered us into our accessibility requirements. The waiver for accessibility requirements were really in spirit meant to, if a new law came and you were up to compliance, but you just didn't do that one new thing, they would grandfather you in. It's not, we've been told, it's not meant for people that never made accessibility in their school. So we would most likely not be given reimbursement unless we not only renovated the area that needed to be renovated or fixed the problem, but also made our building ADA compliant or made the area that was being renovated ADA compliant, which is a reason why that number is so high. We're not only dealing with 1960s, 1970s infrastructure, which you can't just repair, you have to bring up to current building code. That's one of the reasons why renovation is so expensive. There's remediation that has to be done in those areas. And then there's accessibility.
Didn't we spend $13 million on Beecher Road School about 12 years ago?
2014, yes.
That was supposed to bring everything up to code and last for 30 years. What happened to that?
I have heard that as
Maybe it's
well.
not a fair
that it was-
question for you.
Yeah, well, no,
Yeah.
I have heard that several times, that it was supposed to bring everything up to code and that was supposed to be the end all be all.
Right.
We pulled all of the minutes, agendas from all of those committee meetings. It is clear from the committee's own work that their scope changed many times. They knew that there were many projects that had to be done, and for a myriad of reasons, it could have been town finances at the time, you know, whatever. They only chose certain projects to work on. I'll give you one example that we encountered, the site work and drainage that
Right.
was just
That
done
was a
to
big
prevent
problem
water
with that school,
incursion.
yes.
That was engineered in 2011. So the 2014 project had that all engineered and knew that that needed to be done, that that water incursion was happening, and we just did it last year. So I have heard that as well from
Yeah.
other residents, that they were told that was supposed to be the end-all be-all project, and just even from the committee's own notes, that doesn't appear to be the case.
So we have mostly not been ADA compliant?
The only portion of the building that has ADA accessibility is the kindergarten wing, and the kindergarten wing is accessible according to the 1997 standards.
Wow.
Does Mika want to present, or, I don't know. Mika, are you on?
I am, yes, I am. Thank you, Dominic. I'm sorry I'm late.
No problem. I just wanted, and I think I think we all need to get all the answers and all the information as possible. I do want to come a little bit full circle and say this is for the purpose of our housing committee. We can spend the entire night discussing the issues of the budget and everything like that, and I'm sure there'll be public meetings where we can express our opinion. Ours is only what we as a housing committee will be doing to comply with the housing growth plan and to take this information as we go forward and look for that. But I just want to sort of rein it in a little bit, but to that with these numbers, and they're all very good questions. And Beck had a question, and I don't know if it was answered fully, which is the extra 1% for the open choice. I know you explained it to me at our prior meeting. You want to just explain that and how that would factor into it also?
Sure. Our current participation in that program makes us eligible for that. You can get up to 10% reimbursement on the entire project for being an open choice school. It just depends on the percentage of students that you have compared to your enrollment and what your participation is like. We have been conservative there with the 1%. We may be eligible for up to 3%, but we're trying to be very conservative in the things that we know. We are at least eligible for that based on what that 18 students brings to our district and the percentage that is. So that is with the current numbers that we have.
And those are tuition students?
Open choice is not.
I thought, isn't that the town, did the town?
Open choice is not tuition. That was, one of the questions that we had gotten was, well, what happens if our enrollment levels out or drops? And we have this building. And the answer to that is, we could also charge tuition, not just for preschool, but for other students to come in and come into the district. At this point, I don't see that happening in the next 10 years, so that's, but.
Just one point of clarification. You mentioned the number of, this sort of number, 60 million, 50, $60 million, but then you mentioned the number of maintenance over 20 years. Is that in addition to that 60 million, or is that part of that 60 million?
So to maintain the current campus and the current building, if we did everything right now, would be about $47 million. But because we're not doing everything right now, and it would probably be over the next 20 years, there's some escalation built into that. So somewhere between $47 and $60 million is what it would cost us over 20 years.
Over 20 years.
To just maintain the current campus. And,
Not building.
but
Maria,
not
that's from a capital standpoint, correct?
from a capital standpoint. That does not include making the appropriate classroom spaces for our current students or making appropriate classroom spaces for our projected enrollment.
The new building's not going to be free for 20 years.
No, it certainly would, but it would also have the appropriate classroom space for our curriculum and for our programming.
We're speaking more to maintenance.
Yeah. But it's actually going to be a much smaller footprint and overall less square footage. It'll be more energy efficient. We will see some operational savings on the energy efficiency side.
How many stories?
Two in the main part of the building. That is the current concept plan at the moment.
And what's the current proposed site?
The north playground. Yeah, which is away from the wetlands. They've done all of that.
And what will happen to the existing?
It will become fields, recreational fields.
In the parking area, driveways.
Will the existing building be raised?
Yes.
This is great. That's cool.
And that is included in that, the demolition is included in that 118 thing.
Mika, did you have anything further?
Will it be converted to housing?
What?
That building that we're contemplating knocking
Too
down?
much work to do that.
I would defer to Beck, or also known as David, also known as whatever name he is. One thing I've learned, and I also learned to stay within the rails that it says JD, not PE or AI after my name. But in constantly talking to both engineers and architects, and I refer to you, whenever there's a conversation about, well, renovating, turning this building into housing, or turning that, or doing that, the comment always comes back, not always, vast majority of the times it comes back that people are surprised that the cost of a new building, knocking down and building a new building, is less than the cost of renovating.
Certainly can be.
Yeah, I mean, it's not every situation, but there are, which is why the quote-unquote changing empty offices to housing, which is a popular thing to say, until you try to do it and it doesn't
Well,
work.
it depends what the source of the money is on there.
Well, no,
Because the state has many programs with lots of money specifically for that purpose.
no, I understand that.
Because currently, building is incredibly expensive. And it's conversation with a builder today. It's just impossible.
No, I was referring to Pfizer in New York. The issue that they had with that when they tried to overdo it. And they just tried to put 10 pounds of sausage in a 5-pound piece.
So you guys have done a tremendous
Tremendous
amount
job,
of
yeah,
work.
work
I
on
mean,
that,
So
yeah.
proud.
do you have a very large committee?
Marty has 6 on his team, and then there's the sort of administrative non-voting members, but it has been a lot of work. We're trying to look at this as thoroughly as possible. In the spirit of getting back to we're happy to continue to answer questions, but I just wanted to let you know, Saturday, 8/29 at 1 o'clock in the library, there's an open community forum with the building committee. It is up on the town website and advertised as well.
And then our normal meetings, right, first and
Yes.
third Tuesdays of the month.
And then September 15th at 7 PM in the evening, most likely at Beecher Road School, but that's to be determined. There's going to be another community forum. We have, public comment and public Q&A at all of our building committee meetings. So, please bring your other questions, come to the forums, feel free to reach out. You have my email address anytime, and we're happy to point you in the right direction. And again, our website has a lot of the historical documentation. If you want a very quick overview of everything, I'd like to point you to the June 16th of this year, the architect's presentation. They did a really good wrap-up of all of the work of the last couple of years and how we arrived at the decision in a very short 54 slides, but it's shorter than the other longer presentations.
The only thing I would point out is, and I know building committees have a tendency to go through various stages as you go through it. I can certainly foresee, since we have a 3-year time frame, I can certainly foresee us reaching out to the building committee, not just necessarily the Board of Ed, but the building committee, to gather more statistics and information as we go through this, because I assume you'll be updating them as you go along, and that information will be, I believe, valuable to us in working on our housing growth plan,
Absolutely.
both from an economic and a housing point of view. But thank you very much. I'd like to move on to the rest if we don't have any more
Thanks so
questions
much,
about
really.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you guys for
Thank
giving
you.
us your time. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks, everybody. I'm going to drop off as well on this.
Okay.
And I assume your committee has a regular place where you can meet every month. You don't get shifted around from building to building.
We bounce around.
Sometimes.
Thank you very much. Mary and Elaine, even though I was there too, I think it's important to have a report now on this number 7, the SCROG Zoom on Staff and Housing Growth Committee, just to give you a little background. There were 2 of these, one that I attended originally that was set up. This is different than their seminar. This is just focused on Woodbridge personnel, and then they held a second meeting in which Mary and Elaine attended. The first meeting was just the TPZ chair, myself, the first selectman, Mike D'Amato, the planner. It was just generally, hey, what can you guys offer us? Talking to the, why am I drawing a blank on the head? I forget her name. She's very good.
Lila?
Huh?
Laura.
Laura.
Oh, Laura.
There's Laura and Lila.
There's Laura and Lila.
Lila is the hired person. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mary and/or Elaine to give us some background on what was presented at the meeting. Go for it.
So, the focus of the meeting was how to, what is the best way to educate the public in a series that SCROG was talking about, a series of forums. It was a little bit confusing because, Mika, are you still with us? No, he jumped off. I had a question for him. Mika had requested at our last meeting that...
I'm still here.
Oh,
I am
okay.
still here.
Oh, well, go back on vacation.
That our commission do a presentation to educate the public on things that by now we're taking for granted, but a lot of people really don't know. And we went back and forth as to whether it was best to lead with 8-30G. The reason being, and there were several points of view presented. Some people feeling that it wasn't such a great idea. Some of us thinking that it would be a hook to get people to come because so many people are concerned about what's happening on Beecher Road. And so, if we could frame it in such a way as if you're concerned about Beecher Road, let's come and have a conversation. And that would open it up to other things that we could talk about. the best way to organize it, the best way to present it, the people who should present. Some people felt that it would be best if there were outside presenters because of the perception of many people in town that a bias exists towards affordable housing. Mika, would you agree? So we sort of went back and forth with.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, we've done these before, and we have the resources between the expertise and the knowledge that Dominic has, and the expertise and knowledge that we have through our town planner, Mike D'Amato. We could certainly put something together on our own, but we felt SCROG has to be kind of an independent, objective party to this as they're putting together what they need to put together for the regional plan come by 2029. So they're putting together they feel like putting together this forum, putting together this information to educate the public can be used elsewhere, not just in Woodbridge, but we want to obviously put a Woodbridge slant on it, something that's very specific and timely to what's happening here in town now. So we'll be adding things to this, but the intent is to have SCROG as our regional council of government really put together this information and deliver it. And they could potentially do it with the people they have within house, or if they feel like there's expertise that would, subject matter experts who would better be able to present, doing that. But we would be there and we would still be able to input and provide information that's specific to our town so as to make sure we're addressing what our residents are interested in.
If we're doing too much of the explaining, no matter how hard you try to appear neutral, people out there listening are going to, well, wait a minute, they're leaning this way, they're leaning that way, they're leaning that way. So we felt SCROG has the expertise. And when we get to number 8, I really want to have a discussion on some ideas as to how to approach this. But I think
I think Mary and I have volunteered, if it's okay with everybody, to have a conversation with Lila to help her better understand where we're coming from, what we've done, what our goals are, what are Woodbridge's specific needs.
Experiences.
Yeah. So,
what are the various issues that have
Yeah.
gone over the past? I think
Right.
it's important for them, and they can come back and look at the housing, the affordable housing plan. They can go back and look at that. They can go back and look at some of that. A lot of that was not truncated, that's the wrong word. A lot of that was impacted by the COVID, by the fact that we could only have one in-person meeting with the public. We did bring in a lot of information. There's a tremendous amount of information that will need to be updated. But I think explaining to Lida, who's new, who just brought in, what's been going on in Woodbridge, giving her some background is helpful.
I think so too. Mika, are you still hoping that we do this before the end of September? Or do you want to wait until the Community and Cultural Center is open?
We definitely, I feel like it would be best if we actually, as a venue, use the community center. However, so in reality, we've always been looking at end of September, early October, Elaine.
Okay.
So what we might be looking at now is just making sure we choose early October,
Okay.
And Mika, that you're on,
Good.
I'm going to sort of tie this into number 8 because I want to bring something up and
Sure.
need Mika's input on this. And the number 8 is community outreach discussion. What steps should we do to increase public participation? And after the meeting with Scott, I was, whatever you want to call it, I had a little epiphany and I was thinking about it. The whole point is, and reading one of Mary's things about us preparing frequently asked questions about it. And I decided, I'm going to make a suggestion that we try, because we're looking at something in October, that we try to flip it on its head. And between now and, let's say, the next 30 or 60 days, the next 60 days, we find ways to get things out to the public that says that the Woodbridge Housing Committee talking to the public,
Commission.
Woodbridge Housing Commission, the WHC, wants the public to send to us via whatever vehicle that we have, hopefully email or whatever, their questions. In other words, on housing, not on everything, you know. What are your questions on housing? What are you thinking about on housing now? And what questions would you like answered, and what concerns do you have? And we'd like you to limit it to 3 questions or concerns from everybody. I myself was thinking, I happened to be reading the Woodbridge Chronicle today. Could we utilize that to get it out in an article? Is there another way to get out an email blast? Is there another way to
Yes.
do it at a social thing?
We should.
And ask them for questions and see, if we get back nothing, I don't think that's a reasonable possibility, but whatever we get back from them, then we can take those questions, look at it, see what they are across the board, and that will help us talk to SCROG as to see, listen, this is what seems to be issues we need to address. We are going to get a lot on Beecher Road, we're going to get a lot on 8-30G, but we may be missing a group of people out there that have other questions about housing.
Why don't we do it, I'm not gonna be there, I'm not traveling on
Yeah.
Woodbridge Rock Day, but why don't we do it there? And maybe even give some examples of what affordable housing could look like.
Where?
Woodbridge like me.
Because
Well,
we should do that. We
What
should
what is Woodbridge like?
It's the Facebook page.
Oh, the Facebook, okay.
I believe it's the
No,
Facebook.
Woodbridge,
no.
no, no,
No, it's not
no,
a
no,
Facebook.
No, it's a town
Woodbridge,
thing.
like,
Oh, the town thing, there's a Facebook page, Woodbridge Bethany Residents
Yes.
Forum, which is widely,
Lou, the problem, I mean, I fully intend and hope to have a table with housing information on it. We've done it before with our committee, Kathy Hunter and
There's
I.
various groups that are there, it's nothing, you know, it's.
Yeah, so,
Scouts there.
but Lou, that happened September 26th, so that's going to be late to be getting questions.
Right, no, we start the other place, and then we continue with that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the best thing I've heard at any of these meetings is what David said a few meetings ago, where he said, you know, our goal is to have affordable housing in the least intrusive method. We could show examples of, you know, pictures of the sites you visited or other sites that are acceptable, and we could request the questions. I'm not saying that's the first time we do it. We do the other
Yeah.
courses and we
We do
follow up
have
with
a
that.
beautiful, I think Kathy must have it, or Mary, maybe you do, a big poster of very lovely looking affordable housing complexes that were done all over the state. And
to
so,
which our previous high school
You went on the
intern
list. You
contributed
went over
to the
there for a
development
list.
of our table.
Right. And having a table and doing that is good. My
Keep
only,
in mind,
yeah,
folks, keep in mind, to your question, Dominic, you had asked if you know, we can do more resident promotion, if you will, or resident awareness, and the answer is absolutely yes. Allison's position was created specifically for that. And it can be tied to the website so that we can ask people for their input via the website, as well as other means by which we can do that. We can put out information. We're modifying, we're going through some change. We did a survey similar to what you're looking for. We did that for communications in town to understand what people were thinking of what we were doing already. What came in loud and clear is that they are looking for more. They're looking for more information on topics. So what we've done is, obviously we're very limited in terms of what we can do with our newsletter. We've been subsidizing it with advertising, and the advertising takes up almost half of what we have there. Okay. So the direction we're going in now from a newsletter standpoint or newsprint standpoint is I've been speaking with the Milford Orange Times publisher for a while, and we've identified and we've come to an agreement whereby they will start mailing their paper to Woodbridge residents, and Woodbridge will be allowed to put in articles, news, information, columns into that paper that will be delivered to each Woodbridge resident. So that's one of the ways that we're going to increase the amount of information we can provide to the public in newsprint. additionally, we do have Facebook posts that we use on a regular basis for different announcements, whether it's emergency weather type announcements or things of that nature that we will use. We have email lists of people who have signed up to learn different things that are happening in town that we'll leverage and we'll use to make sure that people are aware of this. So in answer to your question, there will be significantly more capability and opportunity for us to let people know about this particular forum than we've had in the past. And candidly, I certainly wish the other ones were better attended, but they certainly were attended. So
Yeah,
it
that's
would be
my-
great to get a room full of
Yeah.
people.
We can tell them about our forums. We can talk to them, that we're gonna have a forum, and come to the forum, and we'll talk to you. What I wanna do is go out to them now and say, what are your questions on housing? Again, they're gonna be focused more on Beecher Road, but they may be, we don't know. If every question comes in on Beecher Road, then we know that's what everybody wants to talk about. But I wanna get it out to the public and find out
And I'm suggesting that we can and we will.
Yeah.
You know, we just have to coordinate it, and with I think Elaine and Mary said they were gonna take this on. You know, there's no reason to not reach out to Allison now.
Okay.
Let her know what we're looking to do, and start to put together a plan for the announcements that we want to make.
Yeah.
The development on Beecher Road is very obvious in everybody's consciousness right now. But there is so much more involved in what we need to do. And I mean, even, taking the information from the Housing Committee, there were so many aspects on how to provide or achieve affordable housing. And I think those points need to be made more widespread so people understand. It can't just focus on that one project,
we're not.
as awful as it is.
Yeah, our
We've gotta
presentation.
look at the whole.
No, our presentation with the help of Scribe, we're not gonna focus. We go to a public meeting, and a small group of the public gets up and asks us questions, and we make a presentation, and we tell them what they want to, what we want them to know, because we've done the research. What I'm interested, maybe if I tell you what I was scribbling, or going over, what do I want to put out on the public website? What I want to put out is, the Woodbridge Housing Committee is tasked with working with the town boards and commissions to develop a housing growth plan. The Woodbridge Housing Committee wants public input and will work with SCROG to organize public sessions. The Woodbridge Housing Committee wants your questions and concerns. Please go on, fill in the blank, whatever, and give us 3 of your questions or concerns about housing in Woodbridge. And that's it, as simple as that, open-ended. Go ahead. We're gonna, and see what we get. Then we can filter it, and we're gonna, we may get a lot of vituperative answers. We may get a lot of questions that, hey, I never thought that the public was worrying about that. We know that. But then that will form the basis of what we go to Scribe and say, hey, you know what? We need to address this issue.
I think we've already agreed with what you're saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think put in your placement, we've already got, you've already won.
I'm wondering why you say 3 questions. Why do they have to limit it? I would prefer that they just told us what they want.
We could open it up or anything like that. I think when a person has to think of 3 questions or concerns, I said 3 questions or concerns. I didn't want somebody to go rambling on it. I was thinking that if you do 3, they're hopefully, most of them are going to come up with the 3 most significant things that they have. And they're going to do that, and they're not going to write Faulkner novels back to us. And so that was my only question. If you think it's better to open it up, then you.
Listening to them. I said we're just so used to hearing the Faulkner novels and.
Right,
dealing
but
with
again, I'm throwing out for the question. If the issue is, no, you know what, let's let them ramble on what they want. what my lack of knowledge is, and Mika brought it up, that there's Allison, and what are the vehicles to get this out? Now, even though what the Woodbridge, what did you tell me, the Woodbridge thing is late.
Woodbridge Like Me Day.
Yeah, Woodbridge Like Me Day is late. We can be doing something there, but you're correct that it gets a little late. I'm looking at seeing if we can get this out before the end of August and get it out to the people and see what kind of response we get back, so we can have a discussion at our September meeting of, hey, whoa.
I get a lot of good information from the Woodbridge Chronicle.
I do
It's
too.
broad, it's unbiased, and it's very informative.
Right,
Maybe we could hook it onto there.
hook it onto there, hook it onto the,
I think targeted.
David, I'm
Yeah.
gonna, formally just say, the unbiasedness of it is a question that I have, but it's a news outlet, it's another opportunity. What I'm suggesting is what I have control over and what we will do. And that relates very specifically to the media, the opportunities that we have both on our website, both on Facebook and within print. And what I'm suggesting, Dominic, and I don't know that we have to discuss it too much further, is Allison is in charge of that. Please reach out to Allison tomorrow. Have somebody reach out to Allison tomorrow, let her know what we're looking at doing, and start to work with her in making it happen.
Right,
But
okay.
we have ways to communicate with our residents that the town has developed over the course of the last years.
all right,
And
so
we'll continue to use that. Anything else is great, and that's fine, but certainly those are the areas that we're going to go after. You, as a town agency, should be using town resources in order to do that.
I'm not, I want to make it clear, I'm not asking them if we put it out on the Chronicle, everything, to respond to the Chronicle. The whole point would be, you should respond to whatever the town website is, whatever the email is, however the response is. That Allison says, okay, if you, please submit your questions to bada@woodbridge.org, you know what I mean? And that would be the
Consider it
best
done,
way.
Dominic.
Huh?
Consider it done.
Yeah.
Just get in touch with Allison. We can set it up exactly like you just outlined, and we'll have that taken care of.
Okay.
Thank
Now,
you.
second of all, is there a way for those people that are not computer literate, that read it, is there a way for them to submit to the town, and I'm just asking because written questions?
We can figure something out,
Okay.
whether it's, if they're not computer, they don't want to use computer, they can either come into town hall, go to the library and drop things off, or we can set up a telephone, they can call the town hall and leave information in terms of what, yes, there are other ways besides online for us to get input, and that we've used many times for many different reasons in different events that we've had, etc. The library is someplace that a lot of people visit. The senior center is someplace that a lot of people visit. We can put material there so that if they have questions, they can leave those questions at those areas where they come in. That, there's options for that, yes, we can
Okay.
share.
Mika, how about putting something on WGA TV? That's pretty neutral.
In terms of,
Just
How do you
have a
mean, David?
blurb that's
Like on YouTube?
Looking for comments, and, call this number.
We'll come up with a variety of things.
Yeah, we'll come up with a
Probably
variety of
Allison
things.
will have
I think that's a good way too, because there are people I know that from what I understand, and from comments made to me, that do actually look at our
Oh, yeah.
committee meetings on YouTube.
Well, I'm up at 3 in the morning, that's what I do.
When I can't
Because we
sleep.
put you to sleep. That too. All right, well, thank
Good
you,
ideas,
Mika.
thank you, Mika.
But,
You're welcome.
on this issue, do you anybody have any other suggestions? All I'm trying to do is jumpstart the ability to have a conversation with the public.
It's a good idea.
And-
I'm curious about one of the words Dave chose to use now is neutrality. I'm wondering where that comes into play here. Because don't you want people from all sides?
Absolutely.
So that I don't think it necessarily needs to be a neutral outreach. We need to get it out to as many places as we
When
can.
when I say neutral, I mean there's not an agenda to X, Y, or Z. We want
For us.
We want the feedback from the
Yes, we want the
population.
feedback from the population at large.
I
Yeah.
would actually hope this is gonna sound a little strange, I would actually hope, for example, that any group, even if it's an issue-oriented group, spreads out to his group, hey, you know what, the Woodbridge Housing Committee wants these 3
Input.
comments or questions. I suggest you go on the website and fill it in with them. Let your thing be known. That's what people are gonna do. I'll be honest with you, and Mary and Lou and Elaine may remember, when we were going through that thing with our own, on the Affordable Housing Committee, when we were going through our own survey, and we got into a discussion, and we did a fantastic job on it, we got into a discussion about should the last question be an open-ended question? I was not in favor of that initially, till the entire committee talked about it, went back and forth. Huh?
I'm always in favor of it.
Yeah, and they went ahead and did it. As painful as it was, painful only in this way, that a good 2.5 hours of my 9 hours of deposition was devoted to the attorney going over not every single one, quite a bit of that last question. But, you know what? More information is better than less information. And there was a lot of information in that thing. And when the attorney asked me what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I just said, there are people in Woodbridge that have different views. You know what I mean? And, that's what this reflected. Because obviously what he was cherry picking was the negative ones, skipping over the positive ones. And so we want to get a broad base.
Ultimately, whatever plan we come up with, we are going to have to get buy-in from the public.
Exactly.
Because ultimately, they're the final arbiters of what we do.
And my only point is, rather than us call the public in front of us and say to the public, okay, here are the issues you need to consider, you know what I mean? Or here are the things we want to explain to you. Or here's the SCROG person to explain this to you. Beforehand, if we know what they're thinking, it gives us a little bit of a heads up.
Yeah.
And with
There's
that,
no reason not to do it that way.
with that,
If only to give them a sense that they are providing
Yeah. we have a crisis.
contribution.
We have a crisis in that this has stopped working. So what I'd like to know, what I would like to do is, can we change totally or wordsmith what I did so that we can give something to Allison, but not a Faulkner novel. I think it should be no more than 4 or 5 lines
That's fine.
as the question. So, I mean, I just threw this out, and I'm willing to have it wordsmith. I stopped at the word please. That's when the pen ran out. Woodbridge Housing Committee is tasked with working with, what?
We got an upgrade, we're a commission.
We're commission.
Commission, I keep saying.
I know, trying to get you out of that.
The Woodbridge Housing Commission is tasked with working with town boards and commissions to develop a housing growth plan. Now, what I was thinking of, do we put at that point in accordance with Public Act 25-1, or we just leave that out?
Too much detail.
Too much detail. You want to put in
No.
a housing
Okay.
plan or an affordable housing plan?
No, we're not tasked with
Okay,
affordable.
this is why I bring it up.
I mean, that isn't what, believe me, that isn't what the housing growth plan says. It's not limited to an affordable housing. Those units those numbers we're gonna get are not affordable units. The Woodbridge Housing Commission wants public input and will work with South Central, SCROG, I don't know how many people know what SCROG is, South Central Regional Council of Governments, to organize public sessions. The Woodbridge Housing Commission wants your questions and concerns. Please submit any 3, and again, I'm wanting to open the discussion. I want to keep it open-ended,
I
fine.
wouldn't limit it.
If you limit it to 3, everybody's gonna have 2 questions. They're gonna be Beecher
At
Road
least.
and Fountain Street. So
Right.
you're not gonna really get any new
Then
questions.
the third question is the one that's gonna matter, right?
Yeah. So go, at least go more than 3.
I mean, are we wordsmithing this thing? Because otherwise, I'm not going to say anything. I mean,
Well,
I wouldn't wordsmith in a committee ever, ever. But if you want to do it, I will say,
Well,
is working with SCROG, not will be working with SCROG.
Okay.
That sounds more,
You're correct, and that's more correct.
is not only more correct, it sounds more.
Dominic, let me ask you a question. I mean, right
Now,
now,
maybe there's the
we're at
real
the-
person to put this together.
Yeah.
right now, we're at the mercy of this 830G appeal process. And until we get enough affordable housing, that will continue. If our growth plan includes a portion of affordable housing and a large portion of market share, we keep moving further and further away from whatever percentage we're required for affordable housing. So I think we have to keep that in mind.
Yes,
Well, we
exactly
I
that.
would like to say that I feel fully confident that this group's, and maybe just me, could come up with most, if not all, of the questions that people in this town have already expressed. And we have already answered some of them, not necessarily all of them. The one that you mentioned is coming up new, now that we have the housing growth plan and all that stuff. If the people who understand it
Yeah.
are asking the questions like that.
You could
But
write
I
out your
think-
questions and compare them to the actual questions that come
You know,
in.
that's what I'm saying about frequently asked questions. If the committee just wanted to sit down today and divide up this project, do some research on what are the best answers out there, given in many other places, or we could ask SCROG to identify the best answers to the basic questions. We could do that as a different way. I'm not saying we shouldn't.
We should ask the
I'm not
questions.
saying we shouldn't pursue this idea, because I really like the idea of including the, including the
That's-
public in
that's
so
the
much
most
as
We
possible.
want public
Yeah,
body.
if
right?
you, we're
You
telling,
ask the public what they're thinking.
Yeah.
I think
Oh, no,
you
that's
might-
why you got the
might come up with all
questions in the
right
first place.
questions, but I think it's a good idea to put out a general request.
I don't think we need also to decide what we're going to do when we get these questions. Are we going to have a forum meeting on all of them? No, we're not.
No.
What are we going to do with the rest of them? As I say, we should be doing white papers, like you said, perhaps.
Then-
We should
then
be
we're
having
telling them.
handouts.
we're telling them. And let me explain something to you.
we
One of the most,
ultimately are
let me
going to
explain,
have to tell
one of the
them.
most complex things anybody can ever get engaged in is a trial. A trial before a jury on a very complex topic. One of the most effective tools that anybody uses, depending on the size of the case, is hiring these companies that do jury,
Selection.
huh?
Jury selection?
No,
Jury?
not jury selection.
Oh, no, it's consulting.
They take a jury, they pick, these are for large cases. They take 12 people, 6 people, whatever the jury is, they give them the entire set of facts, and they say, go and deliberate. And they analyze what they come up with. And when you look at these things, no matter how experienced you are, and believe me, even though people look at me and say, gee, all you do is land use. I tried death penalty cases, defended death, you know what I mean? Because I was in Army JAG and I did, when I got involved in criminal. The stuff that comes out of juries that you didn't think of, out of those people, is what, Mary, it isn't now, we're not gonna do the white, we're not gonna, we're gonna do that as we go along. It's just that there is an extreme interest in housing in Woodbridge right now. All I wanna do is say,
Tap
Yeah,
into
we
it.
should
tap into it.
Please
You know,
don't
what-
misunderstand that I was disagreeing with your approach, because I think it has value, but I don't think it, I think ultimately we
See,
will be
That's
giving
the
people the
operative word though,
information.
Mary. Ultimately. That's
Ultimately,
the
we will
operative
be
word.
the one who are
Ultimately.
providing the information.
right.
But
So
there is,
just,
I'm
we're
sorry.
not, don't sugarcoat that.
but there is a phrase that we don't know what we don't know.
And I shall be delighted if we come up with something. But I can tell you that people are asking standard questions. And the question for us, and one of the questions that in my mind is, what's the best way to get that information to them? in a format that is appropriate, involving, where we're not preaching to people. And that's what we've been talking about all this time. How do you get an expert in here? Somebody's going to have to answer these questions who has authority. If we individually or as a group, a commission, are not considered to be trustworthy, shall we say, but non-biased, shall we say, who can we get and what format can we use to best involve the public back and forth, make them feel like their questions are good questions and deserve good answers, and that they are receiving good answers. That's the critical thing for public outreach.
That's why
That's what we-
SCROG, that's why when we talked at the meeting, such information, I mean, I'll be honest with you, and I think I said it at the meeting. People want to explain 8-30G? Mike D'Amato, Nick Beaumonte, and I, the three of us, I've done an 8-30G. I'm involved in a large one right now that just got filed. I can give them detail for detail about what happens in an 8-30G, what the responsibility is of the town. So can Mike D'Amato can explain it.
By
So
this
can Nick
time,
Beaumonte.
actually, any of us could explain it.
Yeah.
It's not that complicated,
No, it's
really.
not.
Right, well, the point is, there are a lot of misinterpretations. The whole point, when it's coming from the Council of Governments, the whole point of that is, okay, especially when we look at what the questions come across. For example, one of the questions that is often asked on 8-30G is, why do we have to have a statute that eliminates the zoning regulations of the town? Well, the answer to that is very simple. It doesn't do that. And this is what is often out there. It doesn't do that. It reverses the burden.
So let me,
That's it.
just for 1 second, let me make sure I understand. Is Mika suggesting that we have this meeting early October so we can do it in the Cultural and Community Center? That's number one. I love your idea of getting input from the community beforehand. I think that's really important and valuable. And why can't we have somebody from SCROG at that presentation? I mean,
No, that's what SCROG is going
thinking
to
that
do.
SCROG is
SCROG is
actually
going to
gonna do
do.
it.
oh, they're
The
actually.
president, all we're going to do is gather the information as we should be doing, sort through it, take a look at it, and say, hey, you know what? Maybe we should for the public thing, maybe we should have a white paper to pass out, depending if they come. You know what I mean? Maybe we should develop frequently asked questions, not the frequently asked questions we thought of, the
Yeah.
frequently asked questions they thought of.
Yes.
And say, okay, fine, here's some of this. We may be pointing out to a lot of people, hey, you know what? That research was already done. You know what I mean? And this is what that research showed. And there may be, the whole point is, and SCROG, I mean, this is one of the things that you talked about. Reaching the 10%, when you talk, and I'm not, Mike D'Amato made this point, Nick D'Amato made this point to the commission. Reaching the 10% is virtually impossible as you go more housing. Reaching the moratorium, even Mike did it, and he explained it to us a little bit, he explained it in more detail to the Planning and Zoning Commission, is a detailed process that may take a while. Certainly, we can, as in looking at the housing growth, or not, remember, we got 3 years to do it. The Planning and Zoning Commission can certainly look at, and what they want from me is, what kind of regulations do you need that can attract developers? There are developers out there that specialize in 100% affordable. I know this for a fact because one of them called me, got referred to me. And they got referred to me because they have been looking around. They have people, the housing is such a hot topic. They called not for Woodbridge. These were 2 pieces of property that were, shall we say, somewhat impacted negatively, former shopping centers, former shopping areas, whether or not they could put 100% affordable on there. And they were coming to me only because what is the current regulations in the town, and could we work with the current regulations in the town? or do we have to get a zone change? So I interviewed, we had a Zoom call, I interviewed them and I explained to them the circumstance, explained that one town, for example, required commercial on the first floor and only 2 floors above it. So that's the kind of thing, they are looking there. Whether or not, I'm not saying they were looking, there are those people out there, they are developers, you know what I mean?
Remember that Nika told us last time, and he was already talking to some people
Right.
about Woodbridge.
Right,
We're jumping all over the
Yeah.
place, so
But
I guess
that-
we first have to agree. We're sending out the question.
We're sending out the
We want to
questionnaire.
get the question.
we're gonna go through Allison, we're gonna send it down, I
Who's
do
doing
believe,
it? Who's doing it? Who's gonna contact?
We are,
us?
keep in mind, to your point, Dominic, we are already engaged with people who specialize in affordable housing specifically.
right,
So that's something we'll continue to do. You know of lists. There's developers who do it as well, who we've been in touch with. I think at this point, what we need to do is understand your idea in terms of asking for questions is a good one. We'll figure out the best way to do that. Again, it's Allison who will help us in that regard, and we'll get it done, we'll get the input, and we'll start moving forward. What you should be, I think, focusing on is a timeline associated with what you want to do by when, so that we can make sure you only meet once a month. If you have a special meeting because of this forum, that's a great thing. That might be something that might be useful. But what you want to do at this point in time is lay out a timeline, so as you know what you need to do by when, and then we can start executing on that.
And who's doing it?
well, the timeline is, and we do have another meeting coming up with the SCROG people. So the timeline, I think we've settled on is October. That doesn't mean we don't do anything, now.
Oh, well, you don't, excuse me.
But, what I mean is just because it's in October. My point is that we get it out on the website. Once we wordsmith this sufficiently enough, we get it out on the website. There's no problem with asking if the instructions, if the invite and the instructions on how to submit it goes on to, it goes into Woodbridge Chronicle, which goes out to everybody.
No, it doesn't go out to anybody, you have to subscribe
No,
to
it's
it.
We have to
That's it.
subscribe to it?
It's free, but you have to.
Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to figure the number of
We have
things.
to have a plan of action for where we post it, where we have, let's talk to Allison first about that. She'll be able to.
Yeah, let's leave it at that. Let me be very
Okay.
clear, we will be using, what we're talking about is using town resources and town outlets for communicating to the residents what's going on.
Yeah.
Anything we do above that is wonderful and great, there's no problem with that. But what we're talking about is using the resources we have. We have a newspaper that will be available to us for us to put information in, that will be delivered to everyone's home in September. So it's important that we identify what we want to say to people so that we can get that word out by the deadlines required for newsprint. So that's when I say putting together a timeline, I understand the end result is October. But what do we need to get in touch with Allison tomorrow. We need to have what we're going to put on the website by 10 days from now, and that's what I'm talking about, a timeline.
Right.
Working back from the October date, what do we want to have happen? Who do we want to be responsible for that? And when do we want to have happen by?
All right.
I want to end with a compliment to you again with this idea. And one of the reasons I like it very well is because one of the things that I worry about is how we get people there and get them to know that we're listening to them. How do we get them to know that at that meeting, we are going to be addressing the questions that they want to ask?
See, that's
And
good.
that's one of the ways we can do it.
Yeah, and
You start the meeting by saying, you told us, we listened, we're going to talk about the following things because that's what you want to talk about.
And if my pen was still working, and maybe it was, please submit your questions and concerns. Every effort will be made to address them at the public forums that will be upcoming throughout the next year, or whatever, through the next 6 months. Something along those lines. And then it has to have the website on it, they should submit to the website. And then, I'm just trying to find what other things again, maybe I'm overthinking it about people who don't want to, who don't get emails, but how do we get out to the other people? How do we get it out to the other people?
I'll ask Allison
Yeah.
about that, because
Yeah.
she's got a lot of knowledge about
Done.
town resources.
Yeah, all right.
Dominic, we've got printed ways to get information out to different people that is not online.
Okay.
We'll do what we have available to us in order to make that happen. That will happen.
So
Okay.
I'm happy for somebody else to take that job on. I will mention that I've worked with Allison before, so that's easy for me to do.
Okay, well, I mean, all I'm gonna do is call her up if you want.
Oh,
You have
go
a better
ahead, go ahead.
Relationship, if you wanna call her up, I have public hearings the next 2 nights, so it
No,
would be.
I respect your time entirely.
Because, yeah, like, there was a good point, instead of Will is working with Scribe, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
at South Central, we
sure.
just, you know, organize public sessions. We want your returns, please submit your questions and concerns. We will address your questions and concerns at our public sessions, whatever, at our, you know.
That's fine.
I don't want them to think that we're gonna reply to their emails, you know what I mean? We're gonna gather this information and we're
And
gonna
address them.
address it.
It's a good idea.
June, so you can make it happen.
Keep it broad though, say we will.
No,
Dominic?
okay.
Keep it broad, don't say we will address, because we won't address everyone. We,
No.
concerns will be addressed.
Oh, we'll
Yeah,
certainly.
yeah, you know, it's, don't
You wanna
bother.
We're not
Smith it?
supposed to work, yeah, can I have a big?
You can have some
I'll
scribble?
start-
Take a picture of it and
I
wordsmith
think
it.
that, yeah. You want this back, Dan?
Huh?
I'll want this back again.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I mentally, those are just my notes for the Planning and Zoning Commission on September 8th. All right, so I think we're, you know, the important thing is that we begin the process of the public communication, you know what I mean? And I don't want the public to think that we're sitting here writing this plan right now. We're gathering information to participate in the writing of the housing growth plan. That's what we're doing. And the public's input is, right at the present time, number one, on our information gathering tour, so to speak.
Are we doing any old business? Are we gonna look at the list of things that I suggested?
Oh, yeah, well, Mary did send it, you did send it out to everybody, right?
Everybody should have it.
I've got it here somewhere.
Yeah, I don't, and it is left over from our last meeting.
It's secret. No, that's- Just check.
Yeah, I mean, the affordable housing plan, despite what is not dead, it's a document that was adopted and it is a 93-page,
96.
96-page, I was pretty close, just guessing it. It's a 96-page document that an awful lot of information went into it. And we need to update that information.
No, we don't. Well,
Okay.
no, we don't. We don't.
Okay.
It's an historic document at this point. It is like many reference tools. It has its values and it has its weaknesses.
Right.
But we went to a lot of trouble to update it, to take out the things that had passed over time and to create an even more useful and handy thing. And I don't think that it should be relegated to the dustbin. We
It's
will
not-
need to look at it.
not in the dustbin.
Every single time Jeff Kennedy refers to it, he says that it's.
Well,
Okay,
it's
so
not
what I would like
relegated to the desk.
We never did finish the draft in the sense that the Board of Selectmen accepted it as our final version. And one of the things that I was suggesting is that not only that this commission clarify the position, the status of the housing plan, not necessarily at this meeting, but we couldn't possibly finish what we need to do, which would be clean the thing up, include the draft changes, put a new preface on it explaining what it is and what it's not, just a sentence or a couple of sentences, which we had already, but that we would have to fix it probably a little bit. And then just publish it. What's published on the site right now is an incomplete draft. It is not the housing plan entire.
Okay, that's not our task, and I don't want to, there are certain things that are in that what I meant by updated is we need what we're doing, and we can draw upon that as a research, infrastructure, site locations, existing, you know what I mean? Those are the kind of things over the course of the next, whatever, year or couple of years that we're gonna have to keep going over. Which sites are there available in town? Which sites are owned by
My
private?
suggestion was simply that we clarify the status of the thing. If nobody else thinks that we need to do that or that it's worth effort, I withdraw the motion.
Mary, when
Part of
can
the
we-
problem with the report, it was 96 pages. There was a lot of extra, I believe it's simplicity. There was too much in there. And when you throw everything in there, people just will get the fine points on everything. Let's state, what you said is perfect. Let's talk about what sites are available, what we can do.
If those are
There's no
things that we
reason
had
to
done
go
work
through
on. Okay,
that
I
torture
withdraw the
everybody with
item.
96 pages.
I mean, we could look at more of it, but right now, our job is the housing growth plan.
It
And
should
right
have
now,
been, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take a lot of time. It should have been really easy. I meant it to be easy, and I
Yeah.
apologize for taking it.
yeah, I mean, all I'm saying is, it's not relegated to any sort of a heap. Some of the things that you have in your notes, we're gonna be doing as part of the housing growth plan. It's gonna be subsumed into that. And, yes, we wanna have input. And down the road, we may very well be having, we should be having input on whatever they do on the country club. I mean, that, if we said, no, we're not gonna do anything, you know, that would be ridiculous. We need to we need to do our research and make our input into that. That is the kind of things that we need to do. We can't shy away from anything because of anybody's position. Our job is to gather as much information, and when you gather as much information, then working on the plan is the easiest thing to, you know, it becomes easier. Working with SCROG becomes easier because we're able to educate them on Woodbridge, and that's the important thing.
The only other thing on this list that I think we haven't already addressed, either last week or this time, or last month or this month, is responding to the requirement to identify developable land where housing might be placed. What should we do there? We could start to work on that by gathering and becoming familiar with the tools we will need to identify undeveloped land. We can talk to state and SCROG mapping work or so forth. We can SCROG about that. Or we can look at, you know, somebody from this committee or groups of this committee can start looking at Woodbridge maps, Coupot, and so forth, and bringing all that together in one place.
I think we have to look beyond just developable land. I mean, there are other ideas for how to get housing.
But we are expected, SCROG is going to be looking at developable land. So
That's
if
one
we're
of
not
the things
prepared, to talk to them about that,
Well,
then
that-
perhaps we'll be at a
yeah.
disadvantage to guide, you know, their report.
But there are underutilized properties. There are.
Oh, I don't disagree with you. I'm not
No,
disagreeing.
what I'm saying is if you read PA 25-1, there are, I don't know, 70 some odd pages in there of ways to get housing developed. And it's not just developable land. That's the point I'm trying to make.
I understand.
Yeah, there are a lot of little avenues to go down.
Right.
To put
But if-
together enough
If I
of this.
understand correctly, SCROG is required
That's what they're
to
looking for,
identify-
sure, I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep in mind, there are a lot of things. This is 2026. Plan's 2029. We're going to be doing research as we go along and identifying a lot of things. For example, you know, when you talk about housing, Woodbridge they were one of the first towns to pass the regulation on 2 to 9 units, summary review, commercial. Whether or not that's going to happen in our commercial area or not, I don't know. It has some economic drawbacks, but it's there. it will be our job going along. But remember, when you're talking about identifying parcels, an awful lot of the parcels that we're gonna be talking about are privately owned. You know what I mean? The largest parcel that is developable, that is publicly owned, is obviously the country club. But there are other public parcels. Now, private parcels, and I think the best way I can sum that up is one of the Planning and Zoning Commission members at their meeting in July, they didn't have an August meeting. At their meeting in August, when they were doing the presentation with the planner and their attorney, one of them asked then asked me again after the meeting ended, what can we do to attract developers to build housing on those privately owned parcels? You know, what can we do? And, you know, and it's one of the things I will be talking to them about, and I explain to them. And when people don't want to hear it, the bottom line is 90% of the developers, and I deal with an awful lot of them, do not want to do 8-32. They don't, despite what people say and everything like that. They don't want to do 8-32. They want to be able to develop. They want to be able to have the town, they want to be able to work with the town to develop. They don't like coming into a town and having to hire somebody like me to change the zoning regulation to allow them to do that. Because when they do that, then the public looks at the me, the John Nuff, the whomever, and says, see, they brought in their, you know, to redraft our regs. So there are certain vehicles that the commission in Woodbridge can consider, plan development districts and other things that give them control and do that. So those are the kind of exchange we're going to have with them. But his concern was, how do we get a developer to come in and say, hey, you know what? And I'll refer to something that Beck brought up when we were talking about it. I wasn't even aware of the site near behind the old Grimaldi's or anything like that. How do we get somebody to do that?
It's a big site.
It is big.
Yeah,
Big site.
yeah. So the whole point is, how do you do that? You do that by drafting a regulation that entices them to come in and make an offer to buy the property and develop it.
The state has so many programs for money for this, for low-cost loans, for tax abatement. You know, that's a big part of that.
I'm going to tell you, they do have it.
Yeah.
But don't think it's like somebody sitting there writing a check. I can tell you,
understand.
I'm
It's
just
very
going through it.
cumbersome and it takes a lot of,
pages.
and it takes a lot
700
of
pages
time.
later.
Oh, right, well, guess what? Tomorrow, after 3.5 months, we're finally closing a Bill CT. A Bill CT that has 65 units, 20 of which are affordable at 80% AMI in a mixed-use building. But it took us 2.5 months to go through this. And, you know, and so there are these things that are out there, and there are them that are going to be able to do it. They want to do it infrastructure-wise, and there may,
And
and
there's that too, but you know, 3% money is very attractive as opposed to
oh, the Bill
6 or 7%
CT,
money.
oh, the Bill CT money?
Yeah.
But remember, the Bill CT money goes with the affordable units in a market rate, you know, that has a market rate component. There are other components that will fund the 100% financing, okay? Some of those that they fund through those programs, if they're with nonprofits, that whole property could be then non-taxable. And they do that. On the other hand, there are developers like these developers that called me the other day that do 100% affordable units, but it's my understanding, it sounds like they do 100% affordable units at like 60 to 80% AMI. Their projects are taxable, you know what I mean? But they're just providing an entire affordable unit. They do tend to do 1 and 2 bedrooms, but they also do 3 bedroom units and stuff like that. Mainly what they're looking for is infrastructure available type units. But Woodbridge, we have some sites that can be developed with that. But I mean, that's our job, is to write a housing growth plan. There's going to be a number.
I'm realizing I didn't get an answer to my question, I don't think I did. Are we going to wait for SCROG to tell us what their developable property is? Or are we going to address it ourselves as a commission in some way?
My feeling is we look back the list at the affordable housing, our list of 10, whatever it was, 10 sites, 12 sites. We analyze those sites, we see if there's any other sites for us to come up with. We do give them a list, and you guys
But
tell
how,
us what.
who, when? I'm just looking for some timeline as
We
legally
will
say.
get the numbers from them and everything over the next year. So giving them that information,
Or say we're going to do it after they give us?
no. We're
Okay,
gonna
still
do
trying to
that,
figure
we're
out.
gonna do that once we gather it before that information. But
That's
then,
what I said.
the number, what's gonna be very interesting is when they give us the number, which I think is gonna be by, I'm not sure, I think that's the June 30th. There's gonna be more stuff on December 31st, and then I think the number comes out. I'm not 100% sure of this. The numbers comes out.
From the
on
state
June-
or from SCROG you're talking about?
From the state,
From the
from
state.
OPM.
From the state.
The number comes out. If you want to look at, you can look at as many things as you want to look at, but,
So, yeah. So-
if people want to go on Kalshi or Polymarket and pick a number, you can.
Well, I guess what I was suggesting is should we have a subcommittee that is working on this project? Are there people on this committee who are particularly interested in this particular issue and would like to work as a subcommittee? I would suggest that would be a very efficient way.
Well,
Sure.
I think the first step, and maybe I'll put it on the next month, the first step is for us to go over thoroughly the information from the Affordable Housing Committee.
There's only a few sites left there.
I mean, from the,
6 sites.
From the plan that we wrote.
We had 10 and 2 of them are already gone.
Okay.
We're going to have, and as you say, none of them work. That's not true. I think that there may be, and some are coming into the discussion now that were not in the discussion before.
Right, so all I want to do is we can update it, and then SCROG has, I'm sure, GIS and other information that they may be able to gather through their algorithms and come up with something.
So what you're
Assist us.
suggesting is that we do this as a committee
We're
of the
gonna-
whole?
Yeah, at this point, whether we need to subcommittee it may come along as we go along. I don't know, but we're only a committee of, remember, we're only a committee of 6 people.
That's what I suggested.
As opposed to
And we
the,
only meet once a week, a month,
Month.
right? So
And we may
that's
need-
why I suggest subcommittee work.
well, but we may need to meet more than once a month.
Didn't you already do a cataloging of all of the
Yeah.
developable property?
That we did in 2020.
Well, okay, so
That's what I mean, we're gonna take that and take a look at it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
take a look at what other parcels came
Right.
on board. I mean,
you think.
we have to understand, when you look at it, one of the parcels is the country club.
Right.
So that is going to be a discussion going forward, because the country club is the only parcel that has the capacity, if developed appropriately, to create a large number of housing, whether it's 100%, or 80%. I mean,
Well-
Yeah,
there's
I
no
was-
other ones that are really out there.
I was just
Not that
personally, I was hoping that there would be people on this committee who were so interested in this particular topic that they would be willing to queue it up for the rest of us. So we didn't all have to go through everything. They could lead us through what they have done, and then we could pursue it more efficiently as a committee of the whole. Because if we start with the whole committee, to do something like that, it would take a couple hours easily, don't you think? Get the maps out and all that kind of thing. Am I not
Okay.
visualizing correctly?
Well, first of all, I'm sure we could. I want to have a conversation with Lila maybe then on that. It's my understanding, and GIS has improved a lot, okay? And information has improved a lot. So, to give you an example, In one community, I asked them, related to, in the R3, 4, and 5 zones, can somebody, who can tell me what's in the, what are the 2-family and 3-family units that are developed in there? Because as a result of the way they did their stupid zoning regulations, most of them were pre-existing legal non-conforming. They were built earlier.
You can get all of that from the assessor's office.
In the assessor's office, you can then go to GIS. Guess what the GIS could tell you if a town, the community asked and they haven't yet, is how many of the parcels in town in these zones have frontage of greater than 135 feet, which was the frontage question. You can get all that information. Now, we can do some of it. We have done something identifying. The next thing to do, right now, we're sitting with Scrog to help us do public stuff.
outreach.
But it's not, we're gonna be able to sit with Scrog, Lila, and whomever, and say, these are the informations we want. These are all.
Scrog can't help you with this, Dominic, and Justin at Scrog has already been I've been working with Justin at Scrog specifically on the GIS mapping of our town. And he's working on a means by which we can use that to come up with the answers, to come up with the information similar to what you're discussing. Properties that we feel are could be potential locations for any kind of development, if you will. And then identifying what those properties are, identifying what the particulars of those properties are, they deed restricted in some way, identifying what the sizes of those properties are. So that is something that Scrog is working to help us with. Justin specifically, he's GIS guru, if you will, over at Scrog. And when I get back, I'll have we'll have a meeting with him. I would ask that someone obviously from the housing committee be a part of that. But that's going to help us in many ways. I'm hoping that that'll help us with TPC. I'm hoping that'll help us with housing. I'm hoping that'll help us with EDC, with economic development, in terms of being able to identify. And this is more of a program. What he's working on is a means by which we can put in, we can draw up data based on what we have in our GIS database.
And in addition to that, through the CBIA Foundation, there is substantial amounts of information, I'm not sure if they cost or whatever, available at Data Haven. And that's in the commission that I'm on with the CBIA, the committee that I'm on with the CBIA. The founder, Dustin Nord, who at some point down the road may very well be someone I would suggest we bring down to talk to us, from the Connecticut Business and Industry Association Foundation. But the amount of information that's out of Data Haven. So we have multiple sources of information, and I'm glad, because I don't know the guru at Scrog. I know the guru, the GIS guru at NVCOG. You know what I mean? And what they can pull up and how they're changing their stuff. So that's good. And I think, Mary, the important thing then, maybe for us as a committee, is to work on, from our perspective, what are the specifications on a piece of land? You know what I mean? What specifications do we want to give to him that says, can you identify this in this zone? You know what I mean? And what are the private properties? What are any public properties? What are any properties owned by nonprofits? What are any properties owned by religious? And we'd like to know these parcels in this different zone. So it may benefit us as we go forward, and maybe we'll put it on the agenda for the September meeting for us to come up with a list of what are the specifications we want for this.
I really think we have to broaden our outlook, not just look at developable land, but look at buildings which are convertible. Look at buildings which might be rental properties, which could be converted into deeded affordable if the right offer was made to the owners. I mean, these are things which are, I'm not making this up. This is all in the state plan. And
That's right.
I think we just have to go beyond looking at that.
Would you
And also,
accept an appointment as chairman of the committee, subcommittee?
I wouldn't want to, but if you press scan me into it, I could do it.
You know as
But
much.
the
as
other
I-
thing, the other real problem here is, I know you're very interested in putting houses on the country club. You have to get the town to vote that. That's gonna be a
I'm not,
very heavy lift.
I'm not very interested in.
I'm just, no, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, if we put all our eggs in that basket and say, well, we're gonna put 300 houses on the country club, and that's gonna end the problem, yes, it will end the problem, but you might not be able to get there because you
Well, I
might
don't
not
think
be able.
anybody thinks that's this.
What's that?
I mean,
Well,
the reason.
I think if I could for a moment, the important thing is to get started, folks.
Yeah.
Let's identify the means by which we can get something started in the best, or the most expeditious route for us to do that. This is not about figuring out, every single piece out, but let's identify what's available and where we can get started and how we can get started. And then go from there. There's all kinds of opportunities and we shouldn't be either looking at one exclusively or leaving any others out. I agree with that statement and that's not something that's being done, but we can talk about it all we want. Unless we get something started and we get something moving, we won't achieve any goal. So let's identify how we get from where we are right now to the steps toward making some degree of progress.
I will volunteer
Let's-
to pick up that piece of looking at already built properties for conversion or,
Well, let me explain something.
Renovation,
First of all, we
yes.
gotta understand.
yes,
Identifying developable land is part of.
of course it is, absolutely.
25-1. Okay,
Of
number one.
course it is, I'm not saying
Number
it's
two,
not.
number
It's not
two.
the only thing.
And I don't want you there is, I'm sure, not an abundance. I certainly wouldn't describe it as an abundance here in Woodbridge, but we do have an appropriate multifamily section of town.
Right.
Okay. And one of the things is that we also have limitations on what you can have in a lot. And one of the easiest solutions, and this is something I may very well bring up on the 8th, is for planning and zoning to get rid of those. And there are proposals that are made in towns that say, if you want to take your one family and turn it into a two-family, or turn it into a three-family, you can do that, we'll give you a permit. You have to devote one as an 80% AMI unit. And
Yep.
most of the time, you do that. If you look down in the area of our multifamilies, and you do that, and the biggest issue that usually is brought up is parking. As long as you have off-net parking, that's an offer. But that requires, and that's a discussion with TPZ, a zone change that grates against a lot of the stuff that came up under the Euclidean zoning. So for example, I'm not sure about the flats in here. I can tell you about areas in urban areas in Derby and Shelton and Ansonia and Seymour where large blocks of housing were turned into pre-existing legal non-conforming by unrealistic zoning regulations. So one of the things that we could look at, you can free up a lot of the, subject to structurally being able to do it, you know what I mean? But you could free up a lot of those houses going from two-family to three-family or three-family to fourplexes and everything like that. You can free them up, but what you need to do is simply have the zoning commission allow it and then put the requirement in that you're, to a builder, so to speak, you can go to 2 to 3, you can go to 3 to 4, you have to provide one. And you know what? In most situations, they'll take advantage of it because at the 80% AMI, you don't need the increased density to pay for that extra unit. So yes, there are steps that can be taken, but that's one that we can do, but we can do other stuff. And that, in a lot of communities, and even in Woodbridge, would free up more homes and provide more affordable small A, affordable big A housing.
Don't we already have on the books the ability to turn a one-family into a two-family as a right?
In
Because,
some of the
right?
zones, but didn't they pull that back?
I don't think so. I'll find out.
Doing the whole thing no, they don't think they pulled everything in that.
bad.
You can convert.
Well, there's,
The two-family homes are, as of right,
That's
in
right.
in our
You
town.
can
That's right.
convert
Two,
office-
not three-family, not three-family.
Right, two
You can
family.
convert offices into apartments up to, I think it's 9 as of right.
two to
Two to nine.
Correct.
2 to 9 in the
So
commercial
we
zone.
have, and so we have some of that.
Yeah. we
2 to
do.
9 in the commercial zone.
Folks, I'm sorry to say, but I have to drop off at
All
this
right.
point. Is there any, can you think of anything that I might be able to help before I go?
No, we'll
No,
work with
we're going
Allison
to
on
adjourn
the public
momentarily.
thing. Amika.
Yeah, I would just mention, as part of this conversation, that I did say here, and this is an issue for me that I don't know how to get, we talked about this with affordable housing all the way back, but we've never actually done it. Researching individual circumstances for plots, can we leverage the faith-based housing group, YIMBY, somebody, to facilitate conversations with individual churches and synagogues with developable land, or some way to reach out to them, just to find out, maybe they have developable land that they would be willing.
Well, I think somebody to have a discussion with the JCC, and they were amenable to that. I don't
Oh,
know.
really? I didn't know.
Yeah.
We identify, yes, I think that, we had also, well, the
We
JCC,
put it on.
the JCC was on our list, so was the
The Mother Church down in the
yeah,
flats.
right here,
Yes,
over
I'm
here,
sure
which was on our
we've
list.
had
They turned us
discussions with
down.
the diocese in regards to the properties that the church owns, specifically for the reasons Mary just outlined.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten a positive response from them as yet. We will continue to negotiate,
Just to
you know,
try
as we go forward, but
figure out how to-
initially, they were not positive in terms of leveraging that property for housing.
No, not the Mother Church.
Not the
But
Mother
you know,
Church.
but you
No,
know, a lot of these
specifically the
other-
property that they have,
Yeah.
more specifically the property that they have down in the business district.
Precisely.
But they may have property.
But B'nai Jacob, they
Up on
have,
Center
who knows
Road?
what, you know, I'm not familiar with their properties.
Well,
But
I wouldn't think JCC
just
could
to,
do that.
Well, that is
well, they have that frontage on Amity Road, which they're not using, you know.
well, I think it was the back lot that.
No, they
Same
talked
road.
about
The
housing.
back lot, I think they use.
No, they used it for the pool, but there was other area that they could have used it for housing.
Well, anyway,
But
my
those
point
are-
was, don't,
yeah.
But
don't
those are
miss
things to
that.
explore.
Don't
Those are
miss that.
things we need to identify. Let's be realistic. Those are things we need to identify. And those are parcels we need to be taking a look at throughout the town.
Right.
But that requires the commitment on the part of the institution. What our job is to say is, you know what? These sites here, which happen to be owned by nonprofit religious institutions, have sewer or water, sewer and water, or they have water but no sewer, and they are of this size or anything like that, and they are potentially available. It's not our job to go to churches and/or private people and say, you know what, you ought to sell your land. You know what I mean? They'll, you know, but it may be our job as we go through this to make suggestions to the Planning and Zoning Commission as to what regulations they can change that would make those parcels developable. Because like I said, you talk about underutilized buildings, well, fine, I drafted a reg for Ansonia. And then they took it, the commission took it, and that was only for 55 and over. The commission took it and they were gonna change it to allow market rate on underutilized buildings in different areas of town, okay? So that is a thing. I don't know if we have that many you know what I mean? We may have a few, but a lot of it, we're not that old, I guess. Woodbridge isn't that old like the Derbys and Sheltons and Ansonias of the world, where you've got these old schools that you closed, you know, and things like that. And those are the ones that often get converted to housing. And so, you know, yes, we need to talk to them, but one of the big things you have to understand is that developers who you want to come in and do it, whether they're nonprofit or anything, would rather not do the zone text change themselves. They would rather the town initiate it and say, okay, we're gonna take care of it.
Don't we have an elementary school that's gonna be empty?
Yep.
Yeah, we can do that.
And I think we should put that on the table. I mean, David mentioned that before. I know you said that it's expensive, but we can't just go by that. We have to look ourselves.
Okay, it's expensive to keep it as a school, that's what I heard tonight. To keep it and turn it into housing next to the school, I will tell you this, you would run into an awful lot of issues concerning of, well, who's gonna be renting it? What are the people gonna, there's a lot of, I mean, again, we could certainly suggest it, but I don't think they're gonna wanna give up ball fields in order to put housing next to an elementary school. I mean, I'm just telling you that.
Which may happen
They're
across the
building-
street.
They're gonna build,
building-
they're gonna build that new building in the back of the school, which means that everything that currently fronts the parking lot is gonna get torn down. And they're saying they're gonna use the front yard now for a playground, which is fine. And they're saying, at least what I heard tonight, was that they want more parking, but I don't know what they need more parking for. With rare exception, there's plenty of parking there.
Yeah, I mean, if there is I don't know enough about it. If there is a building that's another public property that could potentially be turned into housing. All I'm telling you is, going through it, putting higher density housing next to a school has good points, and it has its bad points, as you will.
Well, isn't 27 Beecher right near the
Yeah.
school?
Yeah,
The
across the
other
street.
pair of properties that we're of,
They're not
that are of particular interest.
You can't say
are
it's.
The Forest
they're
Road
not
properties
putting
that
up
are
public
known as
housing.
the theater lots.
Yeah.
Dominic.
And there's the
Talk to-
312 Rimmon Road is a piece of property that the town owns that has potential for some sort of development. The Country Club is property that the town owns that has potential for some development. And what we refer to as the theater lots, which is a conglomeration of small properties that have, that we've been buying up for a while on Forest Road in Woodbridge is also an area in property that has potential for development. Those are three that we have vetted, we have looked at, they've gone through CUPOP, we identified what's required, and we're moving forward with the plan in order to make sure that they're capable, particularly theater lots. There's some very small pieces of property that fall between them that we have to do some legwork on to either acquire, or we have to resurvey some property. But those are three properties that the town owns that we've already vetted, we've already identified have capabilities for development that we should focus on. Let's get started. Let's just focus on those areas that we know we've already identified as having potential. We're not moving in any direction so far. So if we focus on those three and we get something done on any of them, that'll be positive progress. And I think that's what we need to move toward. So we can talk about all the others all we want, but we already know we have three pieces of property that are significant in nature and good enough for organizations like LISC and Habitat for Humanities to be interested in also. So let's focus on those and let's see what we can do. And then we can start having additional conversations as well. It's not to say to exclude anything or to not consider anything, but let's at least taking positive steps on those three so we can move forward.
Yeah, well,
If not there.
that's not us, that would be the Planning and Zoning Commission needs to take the steps. I mean, we can identify them as parcels are available. At least, I know that the Rimmon Road property has water, not sewer. And with our technology and septics, they can develop it to a modest density. The theater lots, do they have both, Mika?
They have neither. They would
have
need
neither.
septic, water, they would need well and septic.
Can we discuss?
Okay, and of course, the country club is both, water and sewer.
Correct.
So what I said to
Correct.
you is, if not there, then where?
Yeah, my thing, the whole point is, okay, if not there, then where?
Where's the
And
Rimmon Road property?
it's down, I'm at 125. He's talking 310, so it's down going towards Seymour. It's on the
I
left-hand
think they
side.
get their.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
They get their water
It's
from
right near the water
Seymour,
company
though.
probably.
Huh?
They probably get their water from Seymour.
Yeah, they get the water, I think they get the water from Ansonia.
Where are we
Sorry.
speaking?
312.
Rimmon Road.
Rimmon Road
Rimmon
has
Road.
a fire hydrant across the street from the property.
But whose water is it, Mika?
Well, it's
It's ours. It's
Regional
ours.
water.
We checked on it. It's it's water from the RWA, obviously, but it supports our town.
Right, that end of the town. Ansonia, I think Seymour, there's, I think that water line.
We're not that close we're not that close. This is at the consider it at the corner of Peck. It's a little bit up from there, but it's near Peck, Northrop, Ford, that area there.
Right there.
That's the part of Rimmon Road that I'm speaking of.
Right.
So you still got a ways in both directions, whether you're going west or whether you're going north. You've got a little ways before you get to Ansonia or Seymour.
But I think the line comes down Ford Street. Not sure.
Maybe get a traffic light at that corner.
The point
That's
is,
exactly what
yeah,
Elaine and I keep saying.
yeah. The point is, that is developable, again, and the town, and whether it's Lish, whether it's anybody else, can come in, we can certainly, that's an easy.
What's the acreage?
That's low hanging fruit.
Yeah, that's,
See,
what's
that's
the,
I believe it's over 12 back. I'm not sure if it's 12 or 16, but
12 or 16,
it's sizable.
How big is that property on Rimmon?
about 12 or
Say
16
again,
acres.
How big is that
12
property on
12 or
Rimmon?
16 acres, he wasn't sure.
12 or 16?
I think,
12 or
I want to say it's 16, but I'm limiting between 12 and 16 if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Well, you could put your favorite kind of development on there, cottage community
Well,
on the 16 acres.
well, you look at the size of it, there's a 50.
Not an acre.
There's a 55 unit, I'm not sure of the size of it, 55 unit, I think it's 1 and 2 bedrooms in Essex, that is often pointed out, and I think it's on water and septic.
They have septic?
Yeah, it's water and septic.
Wow.
It's, you can go up to 55 units, like I said, the one in Monroe is water, again, when you have water, it's a whole bit. The one in Monroe is.
There are cottage developments in Guilford also
Right.
that have been pointed out as being, those are well and septic from what I understand as well. But they're single family units, small single
Right,
family
small,
units.
the one in Monroe is.
But again, my whole point here is, let's identify what we have to do to leverage these properties so we can move forward with them.
Well, again, and
That's, I
this,
think, what the conversation is that we need to have.
and this is the good example
Are you
for it.
ready, Elaine?
This is the very good example for it. Because right now, Mika, that property is zoned Residence A, right? Or whatever our top residence.
It is, yes.
Right, okay.
Yes, Dominic,
So
yes,
for
correct.
example, on that property, and just, given the size you're saying, there's a 9-acre parcel in Monroe that's on septic and water and has 9 triplexes, it's age restricted, and it has 9 triplexes, 27 units, okay? So you can do 27, 30 some odd units and everything like that. The problem is, any developer coming in, no matter the nonprofit, has to come in and propose a zone map change and a zone text change. So what happens?
We can obviously, from our perspective, our TPC has been more communicative and we've been working more jointly than we have in the past. And in my since I've been here. So that's very deliberate. That's so that we can identify what needs to happen in certain areas so we can make progress, and we could potentially identify areas where we may need to do either overlay zones or change zones or things of that nature, and do it in a somewhat timely fashion. I can tell you any of these development folks take years and years. It's not a matter of, okay, let's get started here and we're going to get next year, we're going to have something, people are going to be out there with construction equipment. That's not the way it works. There's a lot of legwork that we need to do, and that's the work that I'm looking for us to get done. I want to get things started. I want to get things moving so that we are going in a direction that we all feel very comfortable with. And, but we're moving in that direction. So for what that's worth. And I'm sorry, I've got a group of people who are waiting for me here, so
Okay.
I really do need to leave.
We're adjourning.
No, because we're adjourning, we gotta all get
I've
home.
already got it typed in
I really
the minutes.
appreciate it. Really good to talk to everybody.
Thank you, Mika.
Bye.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you. And I'll touch base with somebody, Dominic, Mary, Elaine, in regards to the Allison thing. I'll be talking to Allison tomorrow as well.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, and it's time to adjourn. Can you
It's
make
time
it-
to adjourn.
Yeah.
I'd like to make
Yeah.
a motion to adjourn.
Well, let me just explain one thing that he said that we have to keep in mind. In a sense, I disagree with the statement that it could take years. Right now, we own that property on Raymond Road. Right now, the Planning and Zoning Commission, in 2 months, less than that, can hold a public hearing and can change the zoning regulations that would make that enticable. They do not, and this is the big issue, and this is what we have to convey to them. They do not have to change the zoning regulations to allow something on that site that is as of right in any way, even special exception. And this is one of the biggest concepts. That is why the planned development district is the best way to go. So if they go to change the zone and there's no plan before them, you have a bunch of angry, inquisitive members of the public who say, well, fine, if we're going to change the zone, what are you going to do? Planning and zoning, on Wednesday night, I'm before the project in Shelton, which is condos, which has an enormous amount of public opposition, this condo project. In a PDD regulation, which has been upheld by the Supreme Court, it said, you go in with, on a piece of property, an initial concept development plan and a set of standards that are your zoning regulation. So the public, when they bitch about it, they get angry about it, they have the plan before them. The biggest problem I have is when I've got to go before a commission and that chairman has to say, I'm sorry, I can't talk about the site. I know you know that Attorney Thomas represents them on this site, but we're not talking about the site, we're talking about a text change or a map change.
Right.
And they don't understand it. It is much easier to at least have a civil discussion when the public has a plan before it and a set of things, and the zoning commission is still wearing its legislative hat.
Yeah.
They can say no because they don't like whatever, okay? So that is something that I think, and I think that the Rimmon Road property is a prime example. You're out there with a bunch of single-family residences all around it. But if it was a PDD and it said, okay, here's what we want to do, here's, under your new PDD reg, here's what we want to do, and let's discuss it. It makes it
Yeah.
more civil, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, well, it's not being foisted on people,
Well, when they don't know what's coming.
They're getting buy-in.
When they don't know what's coming, it
Come the
is,
attorneys.
It's
Huh?
harder.
Here come the attorneys.
it is
Yeah, you
difficult. All right.
gotta be
Okay.
prepared.
There was a motion to adjourn,
Conservation
and I'm
is
sorry.
adjourned.
Then seconded, all in favor?
Who seconded it?
David Swan.
David seconded.
David.